My name is Maria Towner. I am 32 years old, and for the longest time, I thought I understood what a stable, loving relationship looked like. Daniel and I had been together for 5 years, long enough that our lives felt naturally intertwined, predictable in ways that were comfortable, steady, reassuring. People always said we were the couple others envied. Every holiday photo felt like a magazine spread. Every dinner with friends ended with someone saying, "You two are perfect together." Perfect. I used to take that word as truth. Now I know it was more like a curtain one that hid the things I didn't want to admit or didn't dare to see. Back then, I thought the simplicity of our life was a blessing. Saturday mornings, for example, were my favorite. A soft breeze, a warm cup of coffee, sunlight pooling across our living room floor. Daniel mowing the lawn while humming off key. I would watch him from the window, sometimes feeling oddly proud, like our small life together was something we had built brick by brick. But looking back, I realize emotions don't vanish overnight. They erode quietly, softly, slowly. So slowly you don't even notice the pieces falling off until you're staring at ruins. That Saturday, the one where everything started to shift, felt ordinary. Ordinary to the point of suspicion now that I'm replaying it. Daniel had just finished mowing the lawn. He came inside, shirt damp with sweat, face flushed, and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek before heading to the bathroom. Everything felt normal until it wasn't. When he disappeared upstairs, I kept scrolling through my tablet, but a faint laughter broke my attention. His laughter, but not toward me. He was in the hallway grabbing his phone, chuckling softly at something on the screen. Normally, he would show me. "Look at this. You have to see this." Can you believe this meme? But not that day. Instead, he turned the screen slightly away, then slipped into the bathroom with the phone still in his hand. I blinked. That wasn't him, not the Daniel I knew. Daniel was always open, sometimes to the point of oversharing, but now he kept the phone close like it was protecting his heartbeat. I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe he was stressed from work. Maybe he had found something genuinely funny and forgot to share. Maybe it was nothing. But maybe is a dangerous word. It keeps you still long enough for the truth to fully grow teeth. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing patterns, the kind that only become patterns when you're brave enough to admit they exist. His late nights at the office increased. His phone never left his pocket. He stopped leaving it charging on the nightstand or on the couch or anywhere visible. It was always face down. Notifications stopped lighting up the screen. The lock screen suddenly had a passcode. And then his laughter changed, still warm but guarded, like he was sharing jokes with someone else, someone new, someone who wasn't me. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. I really did. For a while, I convinced myself the distance was due to stress or deadlines. I convinced myself that things like this happened to couples sometimes, that it was a phase, a season, a dip. But deep down, I felt a shift in his eyes whenever he smiled at me. The spark wasn't the same. It didn't reach him. It didn't reach me. One afternoon, everything collided. Daniel had just gone upstairs to shower after a long day. I was cleaning in the kitchen when I froze at the sight of something on the counter. His phone, not in his pocket, not face down, not locked away, just sitting there. It felt like a rare astronomical event, a once-in-a-year alignment of everything that could either heal me or destroy me. I stared at it for a long time, my hands trembling, my chest tight. "Maria," I whispered to myself, "don't do it. You're not this person." But the truth is, betrayal turns you into the version of yourself you never planned to become. My hand reached for the phone like it had its own instinct. The screen lit up, no passcode. A single notification preview glowed. "Message from Marissa." My whole body went cold. I tapped it. The messages opened instantly and the world tilted beneath me. Flirty emojis, inside jokes, late-night messages that were unmistakably intimate, references to last night and "can't stop thinking about you." And then a photo. A photo that sent my heart plummeting straight down into a place I didn't know existed inside me. Daniel and a woman, Marissa, sitting on a hotel bed, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, both smiling like they had found something secret, something joyful, something forbidden. My breath fractured, my vision blurred. The room felt too small, the air too thin, my pulse too loud. I scrolled. More photos, more messages, more nights spent together. I could barely stand. Everything I had built, everything I believed in, all the ordinary Saturdays, all the quiet mornings, all the laughter collapsed in on me like a building with weak foundations. I heard the shower turn off upstairs. Panic ripped through me. I slammed the phone down exactly where I found it, trying to make the scene look untouched. My hands were shaking so violently I almost dropped it. I walked into the living room and sat on the couch, perfectly still, perfectly numb, perfectly pretending. When Daniel walked downstairs, he smiled at me, casually grabbed a drink from the fridge, and kissed the top of my head. That kiss, that awful casual kiss. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break. I wanted to pull the truth from his mouth like extracting poison. But I didn't. I smiled weakly, pretending nothing was wrong, pretending my chest wasn't burning, pretending my world wasn't silently crumbling under his touch. He went about his night like everything was normal. But nothing was normal anymore. I lay awake next to him that night, staring at the ceiling while he slept soundly beside me. His breathing was calm, steady, peaceful. Mine was not. I knew confronting him immediately would be pointless. He would lie. He would twist. He would deny. I needed the truth, all of it. I needed to understand who Marissa was. I needed to know how long. I needed to know why. And I needed a plan. Because if Daniel thought he could quietly dismantle the life we built, hide love letters on hotel beds, and smile at me like nothing had changed, he didn't know who I could become when pushed to the edge. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay beside Daniel with my eyes wide open, listening to his breathing shift through the deeper rhythms of sleep, while the storm inside me refused to quiet down. My body was still. My mind was a wildfire. Every message I had read replayed behind my eyelids in looping flashes her name, her emojis, their laughter, their bodies so close together in that hotel room. By sunrise, exhaustion clung to my bones, but adrenaline kept me upright. Daniel woke up before me, humming softly as he got ready for work, completely unaware that the ground underneath him had already broken open. He kissed my forehead and left the house with a casual, "Have a good day, Maria." The door closed. The moment the lock clicked, I jumped out of bed like I'd been shocked awake. I needed to know everything. I didn't want to confront him with half-formed accusations. I didn't want him to twist my doubts into insecurity. I didn't want to let him flip the narrative and paint me as paranoid. I wanted the truth, the entire truth, solid enough that nothing he said could wash it away. I opened my laptop. It didn't take long to find her. Marissa Hale, marketing department, coworker, frequently tagged in group photos from Daniel's office dinners, smiling, polished, successful. And then something hit me harder than the texts, a detail so sharp it made my chest seize. Marissa was married. The more I scrolled, the more my stomach twisted. Her social media was filled with family shots, her husband Ethan, a clean-cut man with gentle eyes, and their 2 children, smiling with missing teeth and chocolate-stained faces. They looked stable, whole. A family with routines and rituals and inside jokes I would never know. I stared at their holiday photos, wondering how many of Marissa's forced smile captions had been typed while texting Daniel under the dinner table. This wasn't just about me anymore. Daniel wasn't destroying only my life. He was unraveling theirs too. I clicked through photos faster, feeling a cold nausea rising in my throat. Ethan looked so obliviously happy, proud to stand next to the woman who was quietly setting matches around his life. My hands hovered over the keyboard. Should I reach out? Should I tell him everything? "Dear Ethan, your wife is sleeping with my boyfriend." No, not yet, not like that. I needed something smarter, something controlled, something undeniable. Daniel and Marissa had been scheming behind our backs for months. If I confronted them in private, they could hide, deny, rearrange the narrative, and make me out to be dramatic or unstable. They could keep lying, keep pretending nothing was happening. But if I exposed them publicly, if I dismantled their lie in front of the people who believed they were decent, faithful, trustworthy, they wouldn't escape it. An idea began forming, slow and sinister, blooming in my mind like a poisonous flower. A gathering, a public setting, something informal, something Daniel would never suspect. A backyard party. We'd hosted dozens before. People loved them. They always felt warm and easy. Music lanterns, grilled food, small laughter in the air. Daniel adored playing the charming host. If I hosted one and invited the right people, there would be no way out for him or Marissa. My heartbeat steadied for the first time since yesterday. This was the plan. I grabbed my phone and walked to the kitchen, pretending I was casually checking messages. When Daniel came home later that evening, I waited until he was relaxed on the couch before saying, "I've been thinking. We haven't had people over in a while. Maybe we should host something this weekend." I watched his face carefully. He brightened almost immediately. "Yeah, a barbecue. That could be fun." He didn't suspect a thing. Of course he didn't. Guilty people rarely expect consequences when they believe their lies are airtight. Exactly, I answered gently. Something small, a mix of neighbors and your coworkers, maybe. Just a casual afternoon. He nodded enthusiastically. You plan it, and I'll help with whatever you need. Perfect. The moment he went upstairs, I sat at the dining table and pulled up Ethan Hale's profile again. My palms were clammy, but I forced my fingers to move. I typed, Hello, Ethan. This is Maria Towner. I'm Daniel's partner. We're hosting a small backyard gathering this Saturday and would love for you and Marissa to join us. A few people from Daniel's office will be there as well. It would be a great chance to meet new faces. Hope you can make it. I reread it 3 times, making sure it sounded light, casual, innocent. I hit send. My heart didn't beat for 5 whole seconds. Then a notification. Ethan replied, quickly. Hi, Maria. Thank you so much for the invite. That sounds wonderful. I will check with Marissa, but I'm sure she'd love to come. We appreciate you including us. The irony nearly knocked the breath out of me. Marissa would love to come. To the same backyard where she'd share stolen glances with my boyfriend. The same backyard where she and Daniel had whispered inside jokes. The same backyard where she'd laugh beside the man she was secretly betraying. Yes, she would come. And I would be ready. The next few days felt like navigating a minefield while pretending everything was fine. Daniel was cheerful, even affectionate, as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, steadying myself, preparing for the moment everything would explode. I bought decorations, cleaned the backyard, planned the menu, all while replaying every message I had read over and over again. Daniel even suggested we invite Marissa and Ethan. That almost made me laugh out loud. The person he was cheating with, the man she was destroying, and me standing in between them holding a match. The stage was set. Every detail was in place. Saturday was coming. And when it did, Daniel and Marissa would finally face the truth they had hidden so carefully. I wasn't going to confront them with anger. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to fall apart. I was going to reveal everything with precision. And I wanted everyone to witness it. Saturday arrived with the kind of bright, innocent sunshine that almost felt mocking. The sky was clear, the air warm, but not heavy, and a light breeze rustled the string lights I had hung the night before. It was the perfect day for a backyard gathering, the kind people took pictures of and captioned, "Simple moments are the sweetest." Except nothing about today would be sweet. I stood at the sliding door watching the yard with a hollow kind of calm, tables spaced neatly, chairs arranged in clusters, drinks chilling in metal tubs, lanterns swaying gently above the grass. I had created a beautiful stage, a soft glowing space where pleasant small talk would soon morph into something sharp enough to cut through every lie Daniel and Marissa had ever told. Inside, Daniel was bustling around the kitchen, packing buns into baskets and taste-testing sauces like he didn't have 2 lives unraveling beneath his feet. You did a great job with the setup, he said, wrapping his arms loosely around my waist. Feels cozy. I swallowed the urge to pull away. It should, I replied softly. I want everyone to enjoy themselves. He kissed my cheek. I kept my expression steady, even though every touch now felt like a stain on my skin, like a reminder of the warmth he had given someone else. By early afternoon, guests began trickling in. Neighbors first smiling, waving, bringing potato salad and fruit platters. Then a handful of Daniel's coworkers. Everyone complimented the yard, the string lights, the perfect setup. Daniel took their praise, easily sliding into his charming host persona with practiced ease. All the while I floated between conversations, observing everything with sharp, deliberate attention. The laughter around me felt distant. I was in the room, but not really in it. My gaze drifted constantly to the gate. Waiting. Anticipating. Daniel didn't notice. His eyes were bright, his smile real. He had no idea he was standing in a carefully constructed trap. Then it happened. The latch clicked. The gate swung open. Ethan and Marissa stepped into the yard. My breath stilled. Ethan wore a button-up shirt tucked neatly into dark jeans, the kind of effort someone makes when meeting new people, unaware that the ground under him is about to disappear. He waved politely at the neighbors who turned to greet them. Marissa walked beside him, her arm linked with his. Her hair was perfectly curled, her makeup subtle but elegant, her smile bright enough to fool anyone who wasn't looking closely. But I was. The second she spotted Daniel across the yard, something in her expression broke a tiny stutter in her smile, a faint flicker in her eyes. She masked it quickly, tightening her grip on Ethan's arm as if grounding herself. Daniel froze. Not visibly to everyone else, he simply paused mid-sentence. But I saw it. The muscle in his jaw tightened. His fingers curled slightly, his eyes widened just a fraction. Then he forced a smile that looked like it took effort, a smile that wasn't meant for Ethan. I stepped forward before Daniel could. "Ethan, Marissa," I said warmly, "I'm so glad you both could make it." Ethan smiled gratefully. Marissa smiled tightly. Daniel approached a second later, and for a heartbeat, the energy at our little circle shifted a subtle but unmistakable spark of tension. The air felt heavier. The conversations around us blurred into background noise. "Great to see you both," Daniel said, and even though he sounded friendly, I could hear the restraint beneath it. Marissa responded politely, but her gaze darted around the yard too quickly, like she was searching for an exit she could not take. Ethan, completely oblivious, commented on the decorations. "This is beautiful, Maria. You really put a lot into this." "Thank you," I said. "I like things to be memorable." Marissa swallowed hard. The party continued. Music drifted through the air. A grill smoked gently. Children from next door chased each other across the grass. It all looked peaceful, almost idyllic on the surface. Underneath, panic simmered. I watched Daniel and Marissa from the corner of my eye. They avoided each other with choreographed precision, the way two magnets repel when you try to force them together. Every time someone mentioned the office, both stiffened. Every time Ethan laughed at something Daniel said, Marissa's hand twitched. Small moments, small comments, small nudges. I started conversations that forced Daniel and Marissa into proximity. Nothing obvious, just enough to create strain. When Daniel told a story, I casually said, "Oh, Marissa, didn't you work late that night too? You probably remember this." Her smile wobbled. Or when people discussed work-life balance, I turned to Ethan. "Your wife and Daniel must be exhausted. They've both been staying late for those big campaigns, right?" Ethan nodded thoughtfully. Marissa's fingers dug into her own palm. Daniel's eyes flicked to me. Just for a second, confusion knitting his brows. He sensed something, a shift, a pattern, but he didn't know what it connected to. Not yet. As more guests settled into conversations, I took a breath and approached the dessert table where Ethan stood slicing a pie. "How are you two liking the neighborhood?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "We love it," he answered. "Feels like a real community." He chuckled. "Marissa's been so busy with work lately, but she was excited to come today." "Busy with work, of course." I smiled gently. "Daniel's been busy too. Seems like they've had a lot of overlapping late nights." Ethan paused. Just a fraction of a second, barely noticeable. But the seed was planted. Marissa across the yard had frozen mid-laugh. She was watching Ethan's back like her life depended on it. Perfect. The hours ticked by, each one winding the tension tighter. Conversations felt artificial. Smiles were stiff. Daniel became quieter, glancing around the yard like he was sensing a storm that hadn't broken yet. The moment had come. I stepped into the center of the yard, lifting my glass. The soft clink echoed across the lawn. Conversations died. Heads turned. Daniel looked up slowly, his face caught between confusion and dread. "This won't take long," I said, offering a polite smile. "But I wanted to thank everyone for coming today. It means a lot to have people we care about gathered together." My gaze slid to Daniel, then to Marissa, and finally to Ethan. And I think it's just as important I continue to celebrate trust, honesty, the kind of faith you put in the people you love. Daniel's face hollowed. Marissa's hand shook. Ethan frowned, sensing something shifting beneath the surface. I let the silence deepen until the air felt weighted. Then I said it calmly, clearly, deliberately. "Daniel, would you like to tell everyone here about your late-night hotel meetings with Marissa, or should I explain it for you?" The yard went silent, utterly violently silent. And in that stillness, everything finally began to fall apart. For a moment, no one breathed. The words hung in the air like a crack of thunder that had struck too close. A breeze rustled the lanterns overhead, but the yard itself was frozen, still stunned, suspended in shock. Every face turned toward Daniel, then toward Marissa, then back to me. Daniel's glass slipped slightly in his hand. Marissa's lips parted soundlessly. Ethan blinked confused, like he hadn't processed the sentence correctly. Then, Daniel's voice came out tight, strained, already defensive. "Maria, what are you talking about?" But his eyes told the truth. They didn't widen in outrage. They tightened in terror. "Maria," Marissa's voice cracked like thin glass, but she cut herself off, swallowing hard. The guests shifted uncomfortably. Someone murmured, "Oh my goodness." Another breathed out. "Is this really happening?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "I'm talking about the messages," I said calmly. The hotel photos. The late nights that weren't about work. "Should I bring my phone over, Daniel? Or do you want to start explaining?" A strangled sound slipped from Marissa's throat. Ethan turned to her, eyes narrowing as if he was watching a nightmare take shape. Hotel, he repeated softly. What hotel? Marissa didn't answer. I watched Daniel's facade crumble. His chest rose and fell quickly. His hands shook. He glanced at Marissa, a terrible, desperate reflex, and that was the moment Ethan saw it. He saw everything. The truth hit him like a physical blow. His shoulders slumped, and for a second he looked like a man who had forgotten how to breathe. Marissa, Ethan said, voice trembling, "Please tell me he's lying." She blinked rapidly, shaking her head not to deny, but because she couldn't form a denial. Tears welled in her eyes. Ethan, Her voice broke completely. "I'm so sorry." That was all he needed. Ethan staggered backward as if she had struck him. His face twisted in disbelief, devastation, humiliation all crashing into him at once. Daniel stepped in, palms raised. "Maria, please, can we talk about this somewhere else? This isn't the time. This isn't the place." I cut in sharply, a bitter smile curling at my lips. Was the hotel room the place Daniel? Collective gasps rippled across the yard. A neighbor muttered under her breath, "Lord have mercy." Someone else whispered, "This is unreal." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Maria, stop," he hissed. "We can discuss this." Discuss what I snapped. The way you laughed with her behind my back. The way you lied about every late night. The way you used our home as a base for your affair. Marissa covered her face with her hands, sobbing quietly. Ethan shook his head in disbelief, looking between her and Daniel. 6 months, he whispered. "How long has this been happening? How long have you been sneaking around on me, on our children?" Marissa's knees buckled, and she grabbed the back of a chair for support. "Ethan, I never meant to. I wasn't trying to destroy. You did destroy something." Ethan's voice cracked. "You destroyed our marriage." The yard felt too small for the weight of what was unraveling in it. Daniel tried again to control the narrative, stepping toward me. "Maria, please. Let's not do this here. Let's talk inside." "No." It came out steady, cold, final. "You don't get to control this anymore." A silence so sharp stretched between us that even the children next door stopped playing. Daniel's voice softened in desperation. "I made a mistake, okay? A terrible mistake. But we can fix this." "Fix it." I laughed. A short, hollow sound. With what? Another lie. Another hotel room. He flinched. I reached calmly into my pocket and pulled out my phone. "If anyone here doubts what I'm saying," I announced, turning slightly so the guests could see the screen, "I have every message, every date, every photo." Daniel and Marissa made sure I had more evidence than I ever asked for. Maria stopped. Daniel lunged for my arm, but I stepped back. "Don't touch me." He froze. The guests recoiled. Neighbors whispered behind their hands. One couple slipped quietly out the gate, but most stayed rooted, shocked, captivated, unable to look away. Ethan stared at the screen, unable to blink. "That's my wife," he whispered. "In that room. With him." Marissa sank onto a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Daniel finally snapped. "Maria, you're blowing this out of proportion," he shouted. "You're humiliating everyone. Why would you do this here? Why would you do it like this?" My voice was low, controlled, deadly calm. "Because you have been humiliating me in private for months, and I won't let you rewrite the story anymore." His anger cracked. His voice faltered. His eyes softened with guilt, fear, regret. "Maria, please, you're all I have." "No," I said softly. "I was what you had. You threw that away." Ethan rose slowly from the chair he had clutched, his face drained of color. "We're done, Marissa," he whispered. "I don't ever want to see you again." He left through the gate without looking back. Marissa tried calling after him, but her voice was too broken to be heard. Daniel stood alone now, breath shallow, face wet with sweat, his world collapsing under the weight of his own choices. "Maria," he whispered, "I love you." The words rang hollow, weak, meaningless. "I don't believe that," I replied quietly. "I don't think you even know what love is." Daniel's mouth trembled. The guests started drifting out, awkward pats on my shoulder, wide-eyed glances at Daniel. Quick goodbyes, heavy with pity. No one approached him. No one comforted him. Even his coworkers looked at him with disappointment and disgust. Finally, the yard emptied. Only Daniel and I remained standing beneath the twinkling lights. He wiped his eyes. "Can we at least talk?" "There's nothing left to talk about." He reached for me. I stepped back again. "Leave," I said simply. He hesitated, searching my face for any trace of softness left. He didn't find it. Slowly, he walked through the gate's shoulders, slumped, the sound of it closing behind him, echoing like the final beat of a broken heart. I stood alone in the yard, where I had dismantled everything, not just my relationship, but the lies holding it up. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. That night, after Daniel walked out of the gate with his shoulders collapsed inward like a man carrying the weight of his own destruction, the backyard fell into a kind of silence I had never heard before. Not peaceful, not comforting. Heavy, empty. The kind of silence that feels like the air has forgotten how to move. The string lights still glowed softly above me, but they no longer felt warm. They felt like spectators, witnesses to the unraveling. I stood under them for a long time, arms wrapped around myself, trying to recognize the life I had been living a few hours earlier, trying to understand how long I had been carrying the shadow of something I didn't see. I don't know how long I stayed there. Minutes, hours. Time felt unstable, like it was slipping through my fingers. Inside the house, it was worse. The aftermath lingered. Half-finished drinks plates left on tables, a grill, cooling with silent smoke. A place meant for laughter had turned into a battlefield. I cleaned in small motions, almost robotic, collecting cups, closing containers, wiping tables. It felt like scrubbing away a version of myself, the woman who believed she was safe. The woman who didn't yet know betrayal was living inside her home. By morning, Daniel was still gone. He didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up. A tiny, quiet part of me had expected him to return in the middle of the night, knock on the door, fall to his knees, beg. But the hours passed, and the house remained still. He stayed away. I found a note on the counter instead, written in handwriting I knew too well. "Maria, we need to talk. Please call me when you're ready. Daniel." I crumpled it immediately and threw it into the trash. There was nothing he could say now that would matter. But the world outside our house, it was already talking. Word of what happened traveled fast, so fast it was almost dizzying. By noon the next day, 3 neighbors texted me variations of, "I'm so sorry you had to go through that. If you need anything, let me know. Daniel always seemed a bit off. Trust your instincts." And Daniel's coworkers, they weren't subtle. "Oh my God, Maria, everyone is talking about what happened. You deserve so much better. Truly disgusting behavior." Even people who weren't at the party knew, within hours. It was circulating like wildfire, whispered between coworkers in hallways, texted between neighbors over lunch, rehashed by people who barely knew us but loved the drama. Daniel's reputation, the reliable one, the loyal one, the devoted partner, shattered overnight. It didn't stop there. The following day, I received a message from one of his colleagues. "HR knows. He's in trouble. This won't stay quiet." I stared at the screen, feeling nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction, not guilt. Just emptiness. Daniel's choices were simply circling back to him. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Maria," the voice was soft, cracked, familiar. "Ethan." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Only breath. Only the sound of a person trying not to fall apart. "Ethan," I whispered. "Are you okay?" He let out a shaking exhale. "I don't know. I can't wrap my head around any of it. I keep replaying everything every night. She said she was working every time I put the kids to bed, alone. Every excuse." There was a pause. "It hurts," he said finally. "More than I thought it could." "I know," I replied softly. "I'm sorry. I wish you hadn't had to find out like that." "No," he said quickly. "Maria, thank you. At least I know the truth now. At least I'm not living in a lie." We talked for nearly an hour, not about us, not about revenge, but about grief. The kind of grief that comes from losing a person who is still alive. A person who chose someone else over you when all you offered was loyalty. Ethan had already told Marissa it was over. He had packed a bag for himself and left with the kids to his parents' house. He didn't ask for details. The photos, the messages, the truth he saw in their eyes, it was enough. After the call, I sat at the kitchen table, staring out the window, feeling an ache I couldn't categorize. It wasn't for Daniel, and it wasn't for myself. It was for the version of my life I thought I had. Over the next few days, the fallout intensified. Daniel tried to come by once when I wasn't home. I found a second note near the door. "You're the love of my life. Please talk to me. I cannot lose you, Daniel." I tore it in half. He sent several texts. "Can we talk? I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. I will do anything." I didn't answer a single one. He had months of chances to think about anything before meeting Marissa in hotel rooms. People I expected to support me drifted away, uncomfortable with the mess. Others, surprisingly distant acquaintances, reached out with heartfelt sympathy. It was strange how betrayal rearranged the landscape of friendship. The neighbors who had been in the yard that night avoided Daniel entirely. Even in the driveway, they turned stiffly, murmuring polite greetings but keeping distance. He didn't blame them, I could tell. He moved like a man carrying shame on his shoulders. At work, the consequences finally hit. It started with a rumor, then a meeting, then silence. A coworker messaged me. Daniel's been suspended pending investigation. Another added, it's bad. People are distancing themselves. I wasn't happy about it. I wasn't gleeful. I wasn't proud. It just felt inevitable. Meanwhile, I began reclaiming my life. I started running again in the mornings. I cleaned the guest room and started sleeping there. The main bedroom smelled like lies. I bought new groceries, things Daniel never liked. I cooked simple meals just for myself, quietly, peacefully. I even opened all the windows one afternoon and let sunlight flood the entire house like I was trying to wash away the lingering residue of betrayal. Little by little, the house became mine again. Ethan and I texted occasionally, just check-ins. How are you holding up today? Kids are okay. They asked where their mother was, trying to get through the day. It wasn't intimate. It wasn't romantic. It was two people standing in the rubble of their lives, acknowledging the dust around them. Daniel continued trying. At one point, he left a long message describing how he felt lost, how he fell into temptation, how he never stopped loving me. But every apology felt hollow. He loved the comfort I gave him. He loved the stability. He loved the version of himself he could be when I was around. Not me. Not the woman who deserved real loyalty. A week later, I received an email from his HR department requesting collaboration for an internal inquiry regarding out-of-office misconduct. I forwarded what they needed, nothing more. The woman in charge responded with a formal thank you. When I closed the email, my hands were steady. For the first time, I realized something. The anger was beginning to fade. The heartbreak was still there, but it no longer owned me. I wasn't drowning anymore. I was simply healing. The backyard still sat quiet, untouched, since the night of the confrontation. Every evening I paused at the sliding door, staring out at the place where I tore the truth into the open. One afternoon I stepped out there again. The grass had grown a little. The chairs were gone. The air was calm. For the first time, I didn't feel the weight of that night pressing against my ribs. I felt something else. A beginning. In the weeks that followed, life settled into a strange kind of quiet. Not peaceful, not empty, more like the hush that comes after a storm, the air still thick with humidity, the sky still bruised, but the worst of the wind finally gone. Daniel moved out officially 2 weeks after the barbecue. He didn't tell me where he went, and I didn't ask. The only evidence of his existence that lingered were the things he couldn't take with him. A forgotten sweater, an old pair of running shoes, the faint ghost of his cologne trapped in the closet. I boxed everything up in a single day. Not out of anger, that emotion had burned itself out already, but out of a clarity I didn't know I was capable of. His things did not belong in my home anymore. A few days after, I got an unexpected text from an unfamiliar number. This is Human Resources at Daniel's company. The investigation has concluded. Thank you for your cooperation. If you need anything further, please let us know. I didn't need details to understand what that meant. Daniel's affair with a coworker wasn't just a moral failing, it violated several workplace policies. And if Marissa's marriage imploded as badly as I knew it had, it was only a matter of time before everything caught up to her professionally, too. It was strange watching consequences finally land in places I had no control over, not because I wanted revenge, but because the truth once released had a way of falling exactly where it needed to. Meanwhile, my life was slowly rearranging itself. I began sleeping better, not perfect, not peacefully, but enough to feel human again. My appetite returned. I started taking evening walks around the neighborhood. The air felt different now, lighter. The weight on my shoulders loosened a little each day. One morning, while jogging past a local cafe, I caught sight of a familiar figure sitting by the window. Ethan. He looked tired, really tired, but not broken. A man standing inside the wreckage, but slowly learning to breathe again. I tapped the glass gently, and he looked up surprised, then relieved. We talked for only a few minutes, nothing deep, nothing heavy. How are your kids? I asked. He smiled faintly. Resilient. They ask questions I can't always answer, but they laugh. They still laugh, Maria. That helps. I nodded. I'm glad. You look better, he said. Lighter. I feel lighter. We didn't linger. We didn't make plans. We simply acknowledged each other's survival, and that was enough. As for Marissa, the last I heard, which came through a mutual coworker of Daniel's, she had moved in with a relative 2 towns away. Her marriage was over. Her job was in jeopardy. Her life, like Daniel's, was unraveling in ways that no longer touched mine. I felt no satisfaction in her downfall. Just distance. Just closure. Just a chapter turning. One afternoon, I found myself sorting through old emails, deleting ones that no longer served me. Wedding invitations, holiday plans, photos Daniel and I took years ago. Every pixel of them felt like a lie now. But as I deleted them, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I didn't regret. It felt like cleaning out a closet I had been avoiding. Dusty, burdensome, necessary. By the end of that week, the house finally echoed with a new kind of silence, not heavy, not sad, just open. A clean canvas. One night, maybe a month after the party, I stood in the backyard again. The same lanterns swayed overhead, softly tapping against the breeze. The grass had grown greener. The air smelled sweeter. It didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It felt like mine. For the first time since that day, I reached over and switched on the string lights. They flickered to life, slowly warm, gold, gentle, steady. The yard glowed the way it once had, not as a stage for betrayal, but as a space for rebirth. I sat on the patio chair, folding my hands together, feeling the warmth of the lights against my skin. The memory of the confrontation drifted through me like a distant story I was no longer living. Daniel wasn't here. His shadow wasn't here. The ache wasn't here. There was only me, alive, stronger, untethered. I didn't know what the next chapter of my life would look like. I didn't need to. All I knew was that I was no longer afraid of beginnings or endings. I had survived the kind of truth that breaks people, and I was still standing. The string lights hummed softly overhead, illuminating the new version of my life, a life that finally belonged to me alone. And in that quiet, glowing moment, I realized something. The betrayal didn't define me. The fallout didn't define me. Daniel didn't define me. My strength did, my clarity did, my choice to step forward did. And for the first time in a long time, I was free.